monstrosity. Boy, that flew. Well, sometimes when they're hit, they stay hit. Kieran Tierney.
Welcome to the After Extra Time podcast. I'm Stuart Kavanagh, and this is the place to get your big news, big names, and big games from the World Game. Truly a World Game this week as we take a look at the final stages of qualifying for the World Cup all the way across the globe. Joining me as usual from the other side of the globe is the author of Transatlantic Passage, How the Premier League Redefined Soccer in America, the editor-in-chief of the sportsbank.net. Check it out. What a website. And my good friend, Mr. Paul M. Banks. Paul, how are you doing this week, mate?
Do you ever see some of the old James Bonds with Spectre or perhaps Inspector Gadget cartoons?
Yes, I am aware. Yep.
Remember Dr. Claw, the villain?
Uh-huh.
And of course, the main Bond villain, he sat in a swivel chair at a desk holding a cat. So just kind of doing that. And Otis had different ideas, so now he took off. But it was fun while it lasted to be a Bond villain.
Absolutely. You'll pay for this gadget. I think that was the catchline. Well, now that your brief sojourn as a Bond villain / gadget villain is over, let's just jump straight into some World Cup qualifiers talk, mate. And geez, we had some huge results. We had stuff from Europe, we had stuff from Asia, we've had stuff from CONCACAF. Unfortunately, for any listeners in South America, I didn't do the required research to know exactly what's going on with CONMEBOL. I only know one thing, that the Socceroos, the Australian men's national team, they lost to Japan 2-0. Now they have to go through a playoff route. They need to defeat the United Arab Emirates, and then they will play the fifth place South American team, which I know that this is the only thing I know about South American qualifying. That's Peru. So the Socceroos are in a bit of a bad spot, Paul. This could be the first time since 2006 that they actually miss out on a World Cup.
Yeah, I don't know a whole lot about South American qualifying myself, or how you guys ended up in that region of the world and that part of it instead of Oceania. But man, Italy, given how much they broke my heart with they broke our heart. You're an England fan too. How much with the Euros? Well, too bad, so sad.
Yeah, well, I'll never forget Giorgio Chiellini and Leonardo Bonucci on the sidelines of Wembley after the Euros finished, singing about how it's not going home, it's going Rome. I'd like to just sing right back at them. You're not going to Qatar, boys. You're going back to Rome also. It was an incredible.
No, it has to rhyme. You're not going to Qatar. You're going to the bar.
There you go. Nailed it, mate. Honestly, it is wild. Just the discourse around it at the moment is pretty incredible. I can't believe that there's going to be a whole generation of Italian kids who will have never seen Italy perform at the World Cup. That love them or hate them. And I think everybody knows what camp we both firmly stand in at this point in time. They are one of the true heavyweights of world football. And especially when you take into account their performance at the Euros. They had this crazy world record winning streak, and now they're not even going to be at the big dance. Just a side note, though, did you see the goal? The goal from North Macedonia, just inch perfect, centimeter perfect.
No, I missed it, but I'm happy it happened. I'll have to give me the link and I can take a look at it.
I'll definitely shoot you the link, mate. You will enjoy it immensely. Other big news from Europe. I think Poland defeated Sweden. And they will play the winner of Scotland-Ukraine, which of course has been put off until June, I think, for obvious reasons. And Portugal ended up ending the North Macedonian dream via Bruno Fernandes. He scored 2 goals in a 2-0 victory that saw the Portuguese through to the World Cup yet again.
I think every media pundit, I think every television station, I think every sponsor, I think every broadcast partner, I think everybody involved with this on all levels was so happy Portugal got in and North Macedonia did not, because we already have the sport's next big thing, Erling Haaland, because Norway is kind of crapola. He's not going to be there. Arguably the sport's biggest and weirdest personality in Zlatan Ibrahimovic is out because Sweden did not go through. So if you're going to then tell me that one half of the GOAT, the greatest of all time debate in Cristiano Ronaldo is out, all of a sudden look at what's missing from this World Cup. So Ronaldo is in.
100%. I think also the fact that Mohamed Salah will not be at the World Cup. His Egyptian team fell to Senegal on penalties yet again, if you can believe that.
Yeah, the best player alive probably right now. Arguably the best player alive. Mo Salah is not going to be there either.
Yeah, heartbreaking. It'd be interesting to. I'd love to be a fly on the wall in the dressing room just to see what the dynamic between him and Sadio Mane is like at the moment, because Sadio Mane's Senegal side has defeated him in the African Cup of Nations final and also prevented them from qualifying for the World Cup. So that's pretty incredible. But we'll finish off our little shoot around the world. We've almost touched on all four corners. The final one is CONCACAF. We'll talk about the USMNT in our next section with Larry. But just I want to talk about Canada. They've qualified for the World Cup for the first time in 40 years.
Yeah, that's crazy. And they did a lot of it without Alphonso Davies, their best player, who was injured. And really, I would say maybe the low point for the USA was that trip to Hamilton, Ontario, where they got beat down pretty badly. Credit to Canada. They won the group. And maybe this is the start of something. Maybe the MLS expanding into Toronto and Montreal. And now it's, I don't know. I guess you gotta reform, except if they're playing us. Sure.
Yeah, it's fantastic. They've done a great job. That's the World Cup qualifying. As it gets closer, obviously our focus on it will get a bit more narrow, and we'll be all across it. But that's how things stand right now. Let's move on to our interview with Mr. Larry Hawley. So this week on After Extra Time, we are very lucky to have Mr. Larry Hawley, the producer of WGN News Now in Chicago. Larry, thanks for joining us, mate.
Oh, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
100%. So just pre-record, we were just having a bit of a chit chat about Chicago Fire and how they're looking this season and how they've gone in the past. Tell us about it, Larry. Let us know about Chicago this season.
Well, they're off to a undefeated start through 4 matches with 2 victories, 2 draws, which were the first 2 games. They were both scoreless. And then they were able to get multiple goal victories. So they got a 2-0 win at DC United. And then got the 3-1 win at home against Sporting KC. Again, for Fire fans, it's something very encouraging because the club really hasn't had much to root for since they had a very encouraging 2017 season. They acquired Bastian Schweinsteiger early in the year, had some big victories. I remember a victory they had at SeatGeek Stadium where they sold it out, beat the Seattle Sounders, who were the reigning MLS champions. Really great start. They faded as the year went down. In fact, I think the Fire were actually about mid-July, still in first place in the Eastern Conference in the MLS. But they faded a little bit as the year went along. Michael DeLue, who I thought was a very important player for them, suffered a torn ACL and was lost for the year late in that campaign. And they just slipped all the way down. They ended up in a knockout round game against the Red Bulls at SeatGeek Stadium and were eliminated. And over the last 3 years, really haven't done very much. 2018, 2019 were very disappointed. They had a manager change. Veljko Paunovic was out. Rafael Wicki came in. In the shortened 2020 season, thanks to the expanded playoffs, they were actually able to stay in it. A couple of decent late season wins, but they had a lot of victories as well, or ties that kind of got away. And then in 2021, things really fell down. You know, they had the new ownership under Joe Mansueto, rebuilt the roster, didn't really work. In 2020, thanks to the expanded playoffs, they were in the race all the way until the final match. In 2021, things kind of fell, I wouldn't say apart, but it just didn't work. The chemistry didn't work. And they ended up having really inconsistent play. Or, as Paul will attest, they had a lot of matches late where they could get a win, get a draw, and they would lose it. Something would go wrong late. And it was very frustrating to Fire fans. Wicki was let go before the end of the season. A lot of that mainly was due to the fact that he had family. I believe his father was sick in Switzerland. So they let him go early. The decision had already been made. So Frank Klopas, who has been with the franchise for a very long time, took over as the interim manager for the rest of the season. And this year, you've just kind of seen, first of all, the Fire have cleaned that up. They've finished up games really well. They've had a couple of chances here where matches could have gotten away. So, Inter Miami had a lot of chances in the second half. Last year, that would have been a loss. This year, it's a draw. Orlando City SC in the second match. That almost ended up a bit of a problem. Now, actually, they probably should have allowed a goal because the VAR turned one back that Orlando was able to get. It seemed like Orlando probably should have kept it, but again, didn't allow another one late. They get it. And then against DC United and against Kansas City, they get 2 victories. So I think what you've seen here is something encouraging and something for Fire fans to get fired up about. After having a number of years of disappointment, to the point now we come into April with FC Dallas coming to town, the LA Galaxy coming into town, there's at least some excitement among the supporters that things are going in the right direction after that not being the case for a long time.
So something for Fire fans to be fired up about, if I could steal a line from you there, mate.
Absolutely.
So regular listeners to the show will know I'm a big Liverpool fan. Made no secret of it. Chicago Fire actually acquired an ex-Liverpool player via Lyon in France, in Xherdan Shaqiri. I'm just wondering, how's he settled in? How's he looking as part of the team?
Well, I think he's certainly beginning to settle in. And I want to, first of all, talk about probably the most important thing, Stuart, that he brings is brand and name recognition to the Fire. Paul, you spoke about it when he was first signed. I know you had reported on it on the sportsbank.net. You talked about the Fire.
Yes, I'm actually talking here on my own podcast for the first time today.
You are talking. No, you are. But Paul, you had mentioned, and feel free to chime in, the fact that the Fire have a player now that they can put the name on the back of a jersey and sell it, because they really didn't have it. The main designated player in this new era that began in 2020 was Robert Beric. He had a decent first season in 2020, but he was not very productive at all in 2021 when they needed him. His goal total is pretty high. The reason that is he scored a lot late in the year when really the playoffs were no longer an issue for the Fire. So the first thing that Shaqiri does is provide a player that Fire fans can recognize, similar to what they did with Bastian Schweinsteiger back in 2017 with the club. Nemanja Nikolic was also there. He was the Golden Boot winner for Major League Soccer, I believe in 17 or 18. I believe he was in 17. He was a Golden Boot winner. Another recognizable name. The Fire really didn't have that. Well, now they have a guy in Shaqiri who can do that. I think number 2, he also signals that Mansueto is serious about bringing winning soccer here to Chicago. It was the most expensive transfer in the history of the franchise, and a major, massive move that the club made to really make sure that they could have really something to get fired up about here in 2022, that you'll have a new manager in Ezra Hendrickson, a longtime MLS assistant coach, a longtime MLS player as well, tons of experience in the league. He gets a chance to be in the top seat for the first time here. And I think on the field, Shaqiri is really going to bring that scoring punch. Let's be honest. The Fire just didn't score much at all in the 2021 season. They couldn't put the ball in the back of the net. Beric couldn't put the ball in the back of the net. That's why he's no longer here. And I think Shaqiri is going to have the ability to do that. Obviously, he's beginning to adjust to the club as time goes along. He was able to play in the first 4 matches, despite the fact, I believe, Paul, you can correct me, I believe he was it all became official maybe about a week before the season. I think he got there just in time for the end of training in Austin, Texas. And I think he just got there in time. He's beginning to adjust a little bit. I know I believe Shaqiri had I think he may have had 1 or 2 assists. I know for sure for Kacper Shabilko's first goal, I think he had the secondary assist on that one. He may have even had an assist on the other one as well. And then, of course, he got a penalty kick goal, which was kind of a fun moment for Fire fans to see him get on the board. But I think he's going to bring a lot in terms of scoring punch. We've obviously seen the highlights from Liverpool, what he's able to do, some of the dramatic goals. I remember we had the news conference on WGN News Now where we discussed Shaqiri's acquisition. And I remember playing a highlight reel of goals, and I'm like, this is what he does. He brings goal scoring to a team that simply has not had it over the past couple of seasons. So I really think all of those factors beyond on the pitch, where he's going to be incredibly important, but also off of the field, what the message sent by the ownership by acquiring him means, it is really a win-win proposition.
Yeah, and kudos and thank you for plugging my question at the Jardin Security product rollout, as I call them. That's my name for intro press conferences. But if I remember, that happened about just in time for the February 26th, same night as my birthday dinner, actually. For the season opener at Miami. He was there for that. And basically, I would say it's like this. Your top three signings in club history are Cuauhtemoc Blanco, Bastian Schweinsteiger, and Xherdan Shaqiri. And in Shaqiri, you've got another great midfielder. I mean, that 17 team had Schweinsteiger, it had Dax McCarty, it had Juninho, another good midfielder. And then, Nico developed into that finisher. In Nemanja Nikolic, you had that finisher. And my main concern for the team right now is Shaqiri is very creative and he sets up a lot. He provides a lot of service. But who is going to finish in the end? Because they've got the number one defense in MLS as of now, and they conceded 1 goal in 4 games. So you have to think, finally, the defense has improved. And there's some better center back play. But who is going to be the clinical finisher here?
I really think that's got to fall to Shabilko. I mean, he has, we saw what we was able to do with the Philadelphia Union for a few years. A part of me thinks that he could be that. I think maybe he's that guy to start out. I think it was really encouraging to see him get on the board against Sporting Kansas City. That's kind of where I think it begins. After that, it's going to be interesting to see. I'm very interested to see what Jairo Torres is going to bring when he arrives in May from Liga MX.
Yeah, May 1st, he comes over from Atlas. Yep.
I'm really curious to see what he brings, what he's going to be able to contribute. Is Fabian Herbers, is he a guy who maybe finds a way to maybe, dent the score sheet? Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I really think it's Kacper Shabilko and Xherdan Shaqiri, who are going to be your two guys you're really looking to for a scoring punch. I think Shabilko was really a brilliant get for Garrick Hines to be able to get him for not a really, really terrible cost. A lot of people talk about Xherdan Shaqiri, but I really think that Shabilko is going to be someone who I think that could be a really, really important acquisition, because a lot of people talk about playing well in MLS. Well, he's done it. He's a guy who's had success in MLS. And I think you add him, you add in Shaqiri, that's going to be a lot. But I think that there are a lot of things that still have to emerge on the club, and fixing that offense and finding a way to get the pieces together. So I am curious as well to see who steps up there. What will Torres' impact be? Again, another major signing that I think is an indication by Joe Mansueto that he is, very interested in putting a winning club on the team, right now and getting this team to the playoffs for the first time in 5 years. So Paul, your question is, I'm kind of as anxious to see who will provide that as you are, but I see Shabilko really early on, and probably for a lot of the season, being that guy that in tandem, I think can really bring the offense to the fire.
And then, we have to touch upon maybe the under the radar story, but the big story. We're talking clean sheets. We're talking not giving up goals. Homegrown, just 17 years old. Gaga Slonina, also known as Gabriel Senna, like you said to me in a text message today. Had it not been for what's going on with Roman Abramovich and the sanctions and the Ricketts or Todd Bailey or Vivek Ranadive or whoever's going to buy Chelsea, had it not been for that, this kid might be at Chelsea right now.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly, you want to talk about somebody who's had an incredible rise here in Major League Soccer. It's Gabriel Senna, native of Addison, Illinois. He was 17 years old when he debuted. And not to say he wasn't like old. I believe his birthday was a month or two before, if even that. So he made a really, really early debut, had a clean sheet in his first match. Obviously, the defense played very well in front of him that game. But, he has had a number of clean sheets already. Guys, the number is escaping me off the top of my head. I believe it's 6 or 7, I think is what he has already in his MLS career. Paul, we were at the game against Real Salt Lake, the home finale for the Fire last year. He had a clean sheet in that one and had a couple of really impressive saves in that match. We're looking at a star in Major League Soccer. And I think if you're a Fire fan, Get to Soldier Field, watch the matches, because I don't know how much longer he's going to be there. And as Paul, you very well pointed out, he may very well have gone to Chelsea had, world events not interfered with that. But it certainly is proof of just the international interest to which he's getting. It's proof of just how big of a deal he is. And not only just here in Major League Soccer, but all around the country. And he's only followed that up. It's not like he had this great finish to last year on a club that was out of the playoffs. He's come right out and played really well in 4 matches. So it wasn't a fluke. It wasn't just an end of the year type of thing. And I will say one thing, Slonina really carries himself like he's a veteran. I think not only in the news conferences that we've seen him in, but from everyone we've heard from the way he seems to be on the pitch, the command, the enthusiasm to which he had. I remember seeing after he allowed the goal against Sporting Kansas City, that was the first goal that he allowed all year. The demeanor and the mentality trying to get and fire up that defense again. He has the look of a veteran goalkeeper, and he's 17 years old. So, Paul, you really got to take advantage of the times you see him, because I don't know. I maybe he's here for the rest of this season, but I'm not sure how long he's going to be with the Fire. And he has his own talent and his own maturity to thank for that. We're watching a star, and I think for those who followed the club for a long time, we're going to remember seeing Gabriel Slonina in net and his contributions. It's going to be really exciting.
Yes, Stuey, it was pretty surreal to see, the world's foremost transfer expert, Fabrizio Romano, the guru of the transfer market, say something about a Chicago suburbanite and a Chicago Fire player, because he was the first one to really break the story about not just Chelsea, but the heavy hitters in Europe want this kid.
That's incredible. A bit of a blessing in disguise for the Chicago Fire. So I'm not aware of this player very much at all. He's a 17-year-old goalkeeper. Is that correct? Is that what you guys were saying? Wow, that's incredible. And already playing first team football, already being sounded out by the big boys in Europe. Sounds like the sky's the limit for this kid.
Still don't know where he's going to commit for his international. He's eligible as a youth player. And, I don't know how it works. I mean, it's weird how there's like free agency with that these days. But he's got dual Poland and the United States. So we'll see where he goes.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to watch, Paul. It's good if you brought that up, because it's going to be interesting to see which country he ends up picking. But yeah, it's certainly I think for either one, you're looking at a keeper for at least a couple of World Cups.
Absolutely. And this is a beautiful segue. I wanted to move into talking about the United States men's national team. Probably put together the performance of the octagonal for them when they put Panama to the sword, 5-1, hat trick to Christian Pulisic. I just want to know your thoughts on the United States men's national team. They are playing Costa Rica right now as we record. By the time this goes live for people to listen to, that game would have been run and done. But give us your thoughts on the USMNT, Larry. Where you think they can go, how you think their qualifying has gone.
Well, I think they've kind of had, at least prior to the Costa Rica game, probably what you would have hoped for in their qualification, at least for that stretch here, to make sure that they can punch their ticket to the World Cup. Again, we're recording this before the Costa Rica game, barring an absolute total disaster. And yes, they'd even have a playoff. They'll be in the World Cup. And it's a younger group. I think that they did what they had to do, tying Mexico, going down to Mexico City and getting the draw. And then, of course, coming back home to Orlando and really taking it to Panama. There was no real question. It was 4-0 at the end of the first half. Pulisic, he's going to be, someone who obviously is going to be a star in this World Cup. I think he's going to be a player that everyone watches, and American soccer looks for that next, part of selling the game is that great star, and I'm really curious to see now that he'll have the chance of the World Cup on that great national stage, what he does with it. We're looking at a potential star in this sport, and I'm really, a potential star in terms of the history of United States soccer and in terms of an icon. So I'm really curious to see what he can do and where he takes his, stardom. Where's that next level for him? Something very curious to watch in the World Cup. As far as the U.S., it's going to be interesting to see. I can't explain how important it is for this group to make it back to the World Cup after the disaster in 2018. And I mean, that was, I know really true fans of the national team who were crushed by that. And the implications of that, to miss the World Cup entirely was, I don't know, Paul, if it's I considered it disastrous to miss the World Cup. I think it was a disaster for them, for that to happen, to have that final match against Trinidad and Tobago and to have that go down. So I think it's great that they're just back in the World Cup. You know, what will they have, you know, come the knockout rounds? We'll see. But I think getting back there is huge. And again, I want to see what Pulisic has to offer, and maybe he can lead this team into the knockout stage, which would be, you know, pretty tremendous achievement considering they had missed the World Cup, you know, years ago. But I am curious to see. It's very much an open book for me. I don't know where, you know, it's a lot of new faces, a lot of new groups. So it is going to be kind of a sit back and watch and kind of see where that group's going to go.
Well, our listeners won't be able to see this, but I'm actually wearing the Michael Jordan famous "The ceiling is the roof." The ceiling is the roof for these guys. Yeah, you know, okay, sure. Should they have won this group? Yes. Canada's a great story, and Stu and I will touch on that later. But these guys, I mean, it's England's golden generation never, obviously, that, you know, David Beckham, Frank Lampard, Steven Gerrard. Well, those are the big three. Wayne Rooney, like all those guys, and they never won it. Our golden generation, unfortunately, we still haven't had everybody on the pitch at the same time during these qualifiers healthy. And Pulisic is just the start. And, you know, there's talk that Gio Reyna is going to be an even bigger thing than Pulisic. And given his roots and who his parents are, I definitely believe it. You know, there could be, I mean, when you get him, Tyler Adams, Weston McKennie, the way I look at it, I would hope if they can get to the knockout round this winter, and then 2026, when you've got the joint bid with Canada and Mexico and all these guys that are in their prime. I mean, Yunus Musa could be the next big thing too. He's so young. I mean, they could be really special, like maybe even like a Final Four appearance or Elite Eight in 2026.
I've been very bullish about this current crop of USMNT stars. I 100% support what Paul says there. I actually think, given the talent line for line, I mean, depth-wise, they're probably not as strong as some of the traditional heavyweights. But if you look at that starting 11, if they can get everyone on the pitch, take into account that the 2026 World Cup is at home. It's the Mexico, Canada, United States World Cup. I think anything less than... I think a quarterfinal appearance would probably be a disappointment in that World Cup. That's looking way into the future. But talking about the 2022 World Cup, if they can get everyone fit, I think that they'll definitely turn a few heads in Qatar this November. So before we let you go, Larry, as is tradition around here, I'm just going to throw some questions at you with regards to how you feel like the Chicago Fire is going to go this year. If maybe you could give us a final finishing place, and maybe how deep they can go in the playoffs if you think they can qualify, and also a bit of a prediction for the United States at the World Cup this year also.
Well, I think for the Fire, again, I'm really curious to see what they're going to do against really elite competition in Major League Soccer. I think that that's the next step. We've seen what the Fire can do against clubs that probably are hanging around where they are. I think right now I'm fair to say that the Fire would be a team that would be in the Eastern Conference playoffs, maybe somewhere between 5 and 10. You know, maybe some would say that's too optimistic. Some might say that that's too much. That's where I kind of think they are. So in my personal opinion, I'm curious. Again, a lot has to happen. A lot will transpire. Torres still has to come to the Fire, and this group still has to find its way. Do I envision them winning the MLS Cup? Weirder things happen. Teams in the league have gone up and down and up and down. Right now, to be fair with you, I think a prudent prediction for this group would be probably somewhere into the Eastern Conference playoffs, maybe a 6 to 8 seed, dependent upon how things shake out, dependent upon how their health goes. But making the playoffs would be a major thing for the Fire. And if they can find a way to get a home match, that would certainly help a lot. And if they can have some great moments and sustain momentum, something they couldn't do in 2017, I think that's going to be really important. So the Fire are on the minds of the Chicago sports conscious when we get into September, October, if the baseball teams are good, when the Bears start. Even if the Bears are bad, people are still talking about them, still discussing them. And consistency and keeping consistency throughout the season, keeping fan interest, make the playoffs, maybe get a home game. I think that's a success. I think that would be a really great thing to crack in there, maybe get a playoff win. Funnier things happen in the MLS. So I am encouraged. So right now, honestly, Stuart and Paul, I would say probably a 6 to 8 seed in the playoffs is where I see maybe a ceiling of 5 or 4 if things were to turn out really well. But again, so many tests are left for this group, through the spring, the summer, and then the early fall. But that's kind of where I'm thinking right now. They look like a playoff team. As far as the national team, I don't know if it's, Paul brought up, bringing up, and you guys bring up so many good points about them being so young. Is this a house money tournament for the United States men's national team? To a degree. I mean, I think you're going to get some players with a lot of World Cup experience here that I think could be really helpful. I don't think anything's impossible. I kind of have them, mentally in my mind, they're kind of on the outside of maybe cracking into the knockout round. Could they do it? I think so. But it is in so many ways getting to see what they are made of and what this new young group is made of before I think a very critical 2026 tournament comes up for them. They're going to be back here in the United States for the World Cup for the first time in, would that be 32 years? Or is that 22 years?
32 years. 32 years, yeah.
Good Lord, it goes so fast. But the United States will bring soccer back here, to bring the world's greatest stage back here. So that's going to be a really critical one for them. I think for me personally, if they can have a good showing there, I think if they can be competitive and they can, and you can get an idea of what some of these younger players can do, like a Pulisic, I think that would be great. If they can make the knockout stage, super. But I think a good showing, and I think, again, them just making it back there after what happened in 18, all are good things. In some ways, in my mind, it is house money for the U.S. And if they can do any damage there and win some matches and maybe make the knockout round, super.
Absolutely. So a kind draw would probably do them well also in 2022. Fantastic, Larry. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Larry Hawley, very kind of you to spend a bit of time with us this week. Okay, cool. You can catch him on WGN News now. Thanks, Larry.
And at HawleySports.com on Twitter.
Ah, yes. Thank you. That's Hawley Sports, HAWLEY Sports. That's on Twitter.
Fantastic. We'll drop that one in the episode notes. Thanks so much, Larry.
Thanks for coming by.
No, man. Thanks for having me.
The international break is over, and we switch our focus back to the English Premier League. To be a tremendous run to the finish line with the top 2 race, the top 4 race, and the race to avoid relegation all alive and kicking. Match day 31 begins with one side in the title race as Liverpool takes on Watford at Anfield. Stuey, give us your pick for this one.
Listen, I'm just looking at the odds here. Unfortunately, you guys over in the States have the odds look a little bit different, so I don't know how well this is going to translate. But Liverpool are paying $1.10. That means for every $10 you put on Liverpool, you'll win $1 extra. Watford is paying $21. So you put $10 on Watford, you will win $210. So I think the bookies rarely get it wrong, do they? I think Liverpool will win this one quite comfortably, mate.
Yeah, we've got a title contender and a relegation contender in the first match that comes after what, man, Otis is really sad.
He doesn't like that pick I gave.
Yeah, I guess Otis is a Watford fan. I guess he's upset at the odds. Anyway, yeah, it's pretty lopsided, but hey, football's back after another long international break. So this is probably about as lopsided as it's going to be this weekend. So why don't we just move on to the next match? Mm-hmm. This starts in that 3:00 window where the bulk of the matches are, and that's Brighton versus Norwich City.
Geez, this is a bit of a tricky one. I think I might just go with the home ground advantage and go the Seagulls in this one.
I would go the same. Seagulls are, they look pretty safe. And I think they're going to be a mid-table side. Norwich is in trouble, and I still think Norwich is going to survive, but I don't think they're going to get a result here.
Yeah.
So, and continuing with the theme of Premier League title contender taking on relegation fodder, we have the juggernaut of Manchester City visiting the Turf Moor to take on Burnley.
So this is an interesting one. Obviously, my pick is Manchester City, but Burnley just have a way of frustrating the big teams. They've done it to Liverpool over the years. They have a way of just putting 10 men behind the ball and just frustrating the shit out of far better opposition. So I am going with Manchester City. As a Liverpool fan, there's a little part of me that hopes that Sean Dyche perfects the Dyche ball and manages to maybe take a point or even steal a cheap victory off Manchester City.
We now move from one match that I already wrote the previews and posted out this morning to the other match that I did the previews on, and that is a London derby. Just 5-6 miles separate these two clubs, depending on what route you take. If there's no traffic when you go, you could probably get there in 20 minutes. It's Chelsea hosting the Bees of Brentford.
Well, this podcast, we are famous believers, but just looking at the historical stats here, it's been almost 85 years since they've lost to Brentford in all competitions, the Blues, and I don't see that changing. I think Chelsea will probably get the job done. Goals from Kai Havertz, I reckon we'll see them take the 3 points.
Yeah, the most interesting thing about this to me is, I've already seen the articles about Timo Werner wanting out to kind of end his nightmare spell. Romelu Lukaku broke the transfer fee record, which actually Kai Havertz had just held from the previous summer. He's on the bench. You got to think he's out. What's going to happen with attack? That's kind of interesting, but they'll have enough to get a result here. So yeah, I'm going with the Blues as well.
100%.
Next, we move on to two teams that frequently find themselves in the part of the table with a 1 in front of the position. I know Leeds United is 15th. I think Southampton is 13th as of press time, as we call it. So Leeds hosting Saints. What do you got?
I think I like what Jesse Marsh is doing down at Elland Road. Home ground advantage, once again, is going to be huge. And also, if Leeds kind of want to propel themselves away from that relegation zone, this is kind of a must-win game for them. They need to beat the teams in and around the same positions as they occupy. So I'm going to go for a Leeds victory 2-1 over Southampton.
That's bold. I like it.
Yeah, you think the Saints are going to get the job done in this one, mate?
I do. I think Saints are going to win by 2 goals, actually.
Okay, interesting. We're diametrically opposed on that prediction. It'll be interesting. I'm going to write down in my notes right now. Leeds versus Southampton. And whoever gets this one right has bragging rights next week. Deal?
Yeah, it makes it a little bit more exciting and interesting now, doesn't it?
100%.
Now there's something on the line.
All right, pal. What do we got next?
We've got Wolverhampton Wanderers hosting Aston Villa in what is the 5th and final of the 3 p.m. Saturday kicks.
Yeah, this is very interesting. Just a bit of a look behind the curtain. We did some top 4 race articles on the sportsbank.net. And when you emailed me and said maybe we can chuck Wolves in there as, a bit of an outsider, a bit of an outlier, I was thinking, what the hell? And then I had a look at the table, and Wolves are actually only 2 points behind the very much applauded West Ham United. They're having a far better season than I gave them credit for. And Aston Villa are just 1 position behind them on the table, but 10 points behind them. So Wolves, 8th spot, 46 points. Aston Villa, 9th spot, 36 points. I think Wolves will win this one. Home ground advantage. They're in better form. They've got an outside shot of maybe stealing a Europa League place. Yeah, I think they'll probably get the job done.
Yeah, it's interesting with the Wolves because, like you said, they have an outside shot at taking a Europa League slot, but they have a pretty good shot, I think, maybe of getting into the UEFA Conference League, which is something no one asked for and no one wanted, but we have it anyway.
This is very true.
So they got more to play for than the Villains here.
100%, yeah. And Aston Villa haven't been in great form either, so I think that's another thing that bodes well for Wolverhampton.
Next, we move on to probably the underachieving cup, the the high expectations not met cup, with Manchester United hosting Leicester City.
Let's move on to season 22-23 cup. Everyone, but both these sides want to forget about this season for sure.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. That's the perfect way to put it.
I think United will probably win this one. As poor as they have been, I think Leicester City have probably been poorer. I think Brendan Rodgers probably not long for this world in the Leicester City dugout. I think that we might see a bit of a change in manager in the off season for Leicester. I think he might have run his course a little bit. And Manchester United should get the job done, albeit this is Manchester United 21-22 vintage, and you can't rely on them to do anything that they're expected to. So, take my prediction with a pinch of salt, I believe.
According to Google result probability, 63% chance United gets a win, 20% chance there's a draw, only a 17% chance that Leicester City gets the win. And knowing what I know about United having a pretty good track record against Leicester City and winning the big games against the Foxes lately, although no one could call this a big game by any stretch of the imagination, I do think they should be fine and get this result. But, the key will be is if they fall behind or if they get a lead and then lose it, because under Ralph Rangnick, United just does not come back. Like, they just don't.
They've got no fight in them.
Exactly. If you get ahead of them, they're done. They just pack it in.
We'll see how that goes, mate. I'm going to stick with Manchester United, but you haven't made me feel too comfortable with that pick, rolling that little stat out, mate.
Next, we move on to one of our two focus matches for this week, and this is the expectations not met cup, the underachieving cup, as you have West Ham versus Everton. How do you see this one shaking out?
All right, mate. Well, before we get into any predictions, I do have a couple of fun little facts that we've done a bit of research on here at the podcast with West Ham versus Everton. Following their 1-0 win at Goodison Park in October, incredibly, West Ham are looking to complete their first league double over Everton in almost 50 years. It was the 72-73 First Division campaign, the last time they did a league double over the Toffees. Everton have actually only lost just one of their last 13 Premier League away games against the Hammers. They've won 8 and drawn 4. That loss happened in May 2018 when they went down 3-1. The Toffees have won more Premier League away games against the Hammers than they have against any other side, which is just an incredible stat. All those stats mean nothing, though, because this Frank Lampard / Rafa Benitez version of Everton is pathetic. I don't think that they're Premier League level. Unfortunately, I think they probably will get relegated this year. They're a dumpster fire at the moment. I think West Ham, being at home, will record that first league double in almost 50 years over Everton, and I think they'll do it quite comfortably.
Yeah, it's going to be quite the story to see what happens to Everton. I mean, they were considered one of the heavyweights once upon a time. They're a club with so much rich history that had the first in so many different areas, and now likely headed to the championship. I mean, can't disagree with anything you said. I mean, West Ham is, it looks like top 4 has slipped away from them, but they still got plenty enough to take care of business here.
I do think that, just getting away from the prediction thing for a second. I think Everton really made a faux pas in getting rid of Rafa and appointing Frank Lampard. Now, this is not my Liverpool bias coming in at all. Frank Lampard has zero experience as a player or as a manager in relegation football. Rafa Benitez has. I mean, I think he was at the helm of Newcastle towards the end of the season when they got relegated. He even stayed in the championship with them and got them back up. I just think it was an interesting decision, a poor decision to bring in Frank Lampard, who I think I said last week, I think is an incredibly talented manager and definitely has a future in the game. But this is an interesting step from both Everton and Frank Lampard. Maybe they can prove me wrong, but it's pretty dire. It's dire for the Toffees right now.
You sound like that great quote from Principal Skitter on The Simpsons, which has been made into a GIF or a meme or whatever, where he gets caught, trashing his own student body at his own school. It's like, prove me wrong, kids. Prove me wrong.
100%. That is the vibe I'm giving off right now.
Next, we move to our other focus match, and that's Tottenham versus Newcastle. Now, Spurs have won 4 of their last 5 Premier League games, losing only 1. But that came on a streak in which they had lost 4 of their previous 5. So Tottenham has definitely been, bipolar, Jekyll and Hyde, the roller coaster, up and down. Katy Perry, hot and cold, as the song goes. That's for you kids. If you want to learn opposites, you can listen to the Katy Perry song.
100%, yeah.
Spurs have scored at least twice in all 5 of these games, last doing so in more consecutive league matches between February and April 2017. In that streak, they reached 7. Newcastle has now lost their last 2, but that came on the heels of a 9-game unbeaten run. Both of those defeats were by a 1-0 scoreline, with the winning goals being scored in the 89th and 90th minute respectively. So if you're a Magpies fan, I'm sorry that your heart was ripped out of your chest in back-to-back weeks at the very last second. It sucks to be you. Sorry.
I think Newcastle are going to win here, mate. Tottenham have been, hot and cold, Jekyll and Hyde, bipolar, whatever you want to call it. And, Newcastle, as we highlighted in the fast facts there, have been unlucky in their 2 defeats. I think the Magpies will get the job done. You think the Magpies can get the job done here?
This is such a weird match on so many levels. It could really go either way. Whenever I see something like this and I'm forced to make a prediction, I'm going to go score or draw because I don't know.
Okay, no, that's fair. I respect that.
I like the overall, though. I will say I like the Tottenham rebuilding plan because I like Antonio Conte. I think he's the right man for the gig.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. And he's fun. He's fun for the media. He never holds back. Definitely wears his heart on his sleeve, and is always good for a soundbite.
So, final match to preview: London Derby, North versus South. Crystal Palace hosting the Gunners of Arsenal in Monday night football.
So let me preface this by saying I think the Gunners will win. They're a great young side. They pushed Liverpool all the way. I think that was their last Premier League match. I'm very excited, which is the polar opposite of what I was at the start of the season. I'm very excited with the project going on at Arsenal there. I think they'll get the job done. Crystal Palace, not going to be any pushovers, though. I think Patrick Vieira has them well drilled. They're a good side. So I think it'll go all the way. It wouldn't surprise me if it's a draw. It would surprise me if the Eagles manage to win. But I think the Gunners will secure 3 points in Monday night football.
And all my rowdy friends are coming over tonight.
Before we take off, Paul, do you have anything going on in your week ahead that you want to share with the listeners?
Yeah, go to the Sports Bank and check out my exclusives with two former NBA legends, Kendall Gill and Carlos Boozer. As of this recording, part one of both exclusives are already up. This was at Happy Camper Pizzeria and Sports Bar in Wrigleyville. The good people at PointsBet USA hosted a nice party. Our good friend of the show, Jeremy Ross, was kind of hosting it. So shout out to Jeremy Ross for setting that up. And it was a fun night. Played Pop-A-Shot against Jeremy and Larry, who we had on tonight. And also my friend Bill and I beat all of them at the game and beat them so badly. I then shot the basketball with my left hand, with my opposite hand, and still beat them. But that's anyway. Yeah. So Kendall Gill, Illini legend, Chicago Bulls legend, Carlos Boozer, Chicago Bulls legend, and now pitchman for underwear that is catered specifically to men who have recently had a vasectomy.
Oh, interesting.
And yes, you heard that right. I did a post already on his ad about the underwear that is made for men who are recovering from just having their tubes tied, having the vasectomy done. And interesting stat. I didn't know that. Most men elect to have that done right before March Madness.
So check that out. Kendall Gill and Carlos Boozer at thesportsbank.net. That is it for another week. As usual, follow us at our Twitter account at @AfterET_podcast. Be sure to get all your latest football news and previews at thesportsbank.net and show the third member of the pod some love by following at Otis Ginger Tabby on Instagram. If you enjoy the podcast, please click that subscribe button. And if you really dig it, please take the time to give us a 5-star rating. I'd like to thank Larry Hawley for joining us today. Until next week, he's Paul M. Banks. I'm Stuart Kavanagh, and this has been After Extra Time.